lunch, and Buzz sat down with him and said, "Neil, I don't want to lose your voice." And Neil basically told him, "Leave me the hell alone. I just want to retire." And Buzz kept sticking with him and kept pushing him, and eventually the two men came up with an idea for a publication. And after they did the research, they realized that the printing, the ink, the distribution, all those sort of things were incredibly prohibitive to ever starting a publication, and that they looked to the future and saw that there was really not going to be a whole lot of money to be made in the media, and they weren't doing this to make money, they were doing this as a public service. So they started us as a nonprofit, which we still are, and an online only publication, basically created to start filling some of the gaps that traditional media were leaving behind.
KGTV, I'm the managing editor there and have been there for some time. We're owned by McGraw-Hill Broadcasting, which is part of McGraw-Hill Companies based out in New York. It's an old line First Amendment company. We believe in the First Amendment. That is our mantra. Our goal is to provide broad information to as broad an audience as possible, we endeavor to do this, trying to be first on breaking stories by doing investigative stories nobody else has, and by covering the daily events in the city. If you've watched our news for any time, you notice we've done a shift now. You won't see any features on our air anymore. We're strictly hard news, and hard news. That was on purpose because we feel that people have so many options today. Time is so pressing that you got to give them what they want and get it done with. They don't have time to hear about the, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it, but they don't have time to hear about the, the Rose Festival or Balboa Park. That we get other stations to cover.
Thanks. At the UT, our mission is pretty grand. It's to improve lives and build a stronger community through information. And that means promoting the civic life, guarding public trust, being the things that you would expect from a newspaper. And those values, I think, go to all platforms. And so, the ideas about new media and all of that, while important, are really not as important as those underlying values of the basic work that we do. I thought I'd give just a little bit of background to help you guys understand, what's with all this change at the Union-Tribune. And we can get into more as you're interested. Yeah, there you go. When Platinum bought the Tribune, what they got, or the UT, what they got was a property that was losing money every month. And the solution on that end, in part, is just all these cuts that have been made, right, to try to get the costs down. And you've seen that in every town throughout the industry. But beyond that, when you looked at what was going on with the newspaper, it was really selling to a shrinking and increasingly dissatisfied audience, right? An aging, shrinking, dissatisfied audience. And so the big picture on it is, when we looked at basic dimensions like cares about people like me, shares my views and values, understands what's really important in the community. These are areas where the Union-Tribune that was, that we inherited here, scored very poorly, right? So there's some fundamental problems. The things that we're doing to address that included at a high level saying, you know what, these positions need to change, and there needs to be a strong signal of change. And some of the things that the very core audience really has wanted, like a bigger newspaper, a lot more nation and world news, that paper that we used to have, we're not going to be able to provide those things, right? That's not the way of the world. So we'll have to make paper different and try to improve it along different dimensions. So, some of the things that we're doing now, we've tried to work first in the business section and in the watchdog journalism area, and we're trying to roll out piece by piece improvements, and we can talk about whether you guys see them that way or not.
I'm Leon Williams. Yes, you probably already know. I'm here primarily because that very influential young man over there, I say young because he's younger than I am. You might not believe it, because I claim to be 39. But he's pretty persuasive, and he asked me to be on this panel with all these experts, and I said, what on earth can I say? What can I do? And well, just do something, or do whatever you want to do, and I'm going to do that, I guess. But I feel intimidated. I want you to know that, because I came here prepared to talk about.
Talking to Mike.
I came here prepared to talk about the national press and the local press and all that. And I felt as if I am going to talk to people who buy ink by the barrel and who have buy paper by the roll and or who have an hour and a half before a microphone and a radio or TV station. And what am I going to say that won't tick them off that's truthful? You get that? You know, I'm going to be a little bit longer because I came prepared a little bit to be a little bit more critical. I think we have problems both nationally and locally in the press. In your grandfather's day, some of your grandfather's days, my young days, we had national press people on the three major networks. We had NBC, CBS, and ABC. We had people like, now this really lets you know something about me, people like Ed Murrow, and David Brinkley and Walter Cronkite. I'm sure some of you relatively older young folks here remember that's the way it is. And in those days, I used to believe that in spite of the fact that we had other problems, we had the civil rights and a lot of those things, and there were no significant numbers of African Americans or Latinos or others involved in what was happening, presentation of information in news. I had the impression that there was serious attempt on the part of those people to tell us as well as they could the truth of issues and to explain or to get the facts so that they wouldn't be presenting things like this young, well, like this preacher down in Florida who claimed he was going to burn Qurans, and we had an international conflagration. And I believe that's partly because the way the press handled it. I believe the press paid too much attention to extremes and radicals. And they do things like, don't you think this should be the case of somebody seeking their opinion rather than what do you think or something, giving the person the chance to be objective. They lead the question, they lead people to saying, I believe, unhealthy and sometimes downright incorrect things. Now, of course, we have a babble, as all of you know. Nobody can know about that from these other real experts. We have people, the bloggers and the YouTubers and the tweeters and the people who do things like take an NAACP speech and take part of it, twist it, and cause millions of people in the country to be twisted and in conflict with each other. I don't believe that's journalism. I don't believe that's what I've always heard about journalists. The ones that I've known personally claim to be objective, even when I could see that they weren't objective, but they were at least trying to be objective. They weren't trying to twist information, to rile people up, to create